Excuse me. Who taught you to sign like that? The words struck like a crack of thunder in a silent sky. Sudden, sharp, impossible to ignore. Maya Williams froze mid-motion, her fingers still suspended mid-air in the last curve of a graceful sign. Her cleaning cart stood nearby in the quiet marble hallway of the Wexford Tower's 46th floor. It was early morning, and she had been alone, or so she thought. But what if this fleeting moment wasn't just a chance encounter? What if it was the spark that could change her life forever? Stay tuned to Real Stories Diary to find out. She turned slowly. Standing near the window, hands in his pockets, was Ethan Caldwell. Tall, composed, sharp-suited. He looked every bit the man whose face had graced Forbes, Time, and Business Tech magazines, CEO of Clearlink Technologies, the man Maya had only ever seen from afar until now. Her breath caught, her eyes widened, panic surged in her chest. She had been signing to herself during a quiet moment. Just muscle memory. Just practice. Now, she thought she might be fired for it. "I'm sorry," Maya stammered, her voice trembling. "I didn't mean," I wasn't. Ethan's brow lifted in mild confusion. "No need to apologize. I was just surprised. That was sign language, right?" Maya's heart thumped hard enough to shake her ribs. Her voice came out small. "Yes, sir. I didn't think anyone would see me. I was just practicing." She dropped her gaze, her shoulders tensed, almost shrinking into herself. Years of invisibility had trained her to stay small, silent, not to draw attention. "I wasn't trying to do anything wrong," she added quickly. "Please don't report me. I really need this job." Ethan's expression shifted, less curious now, more gentle. "You're not in trouble, Maya," he said, reading her name from the badge clipped to her shirt. "I just wasn't expecting to see anyone signing on this floor, and I certainly didn't expect it to be that expressive." Could this be the moment Maya's hidden talent is finally seen? Keep watching Real Stories Diary to uncover the incredible journey ahead. Maya blinked. That wasn't what she expected to hear. Not at all. "I learned ASL for my little brother," she said, voice still soft. "He's deaf. I used to study it in school." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "I could tell you weren't just mimicking signs. It looked fluent. Felt real." Maya said nothing. Too stunned to form words. She clutched the edge of her cleaning cart, grounding herself. After a moment, Ethan took a step forward. "Would you mind stopping by my office tomorrow morning? Just for a few minutes. I'd like to talk." Maya's head jerked up. "Your office?" she echoed, nearly whispering. He offered a faint, polite smile. "Yes, nothing formal. I just have a feeling you might be able to help us in ways you don't realize yet." Then he nodded once and walked away, his footsteps disappearing into the silence of the executive hallway. Maya remained frozen, blinking at the polished floor, a strange tightness in her throat. She had no idea what had just happened, but for the first time in a long time, she wasn't invisible. That evening, in the modest two-bedroom apartment she shared with her mother and teenage brother, Zeke, Maya sat quietly at the kitchen table, her dinner untouched. Zeke, sprawled on the couch with his math book, noticed her silence and signed, "What happened today?" She hesitated, then slowly signed back, "The CEO saw me signing. He talked to me." Zeke's eyes grew wide. "And he asked me to go to his office tomorrow." Zeke dropped his pencil. "What? You have to go." "I don't know if I should," Maya replied, speaking aloud. "What if I get fired for overstepping? What if he thinks I'm strange?" "You're not strange. You're gifted," Zeke signed. "You taught yourself a whole language because of me. That's not something you hide. It's something you should be proud of." Maya looked down at her hands. The same hands that folded sheets, wiped counters, and, in stolen moments, danced in the air for no one but herself. And now, someone had noticed. The next morning, Maya ironed her uniform twice. She didn't own business clothes or a proper handbag, but she tied her hair back neatly and applied a thin layer of lip balm. When she walked into the staff hallway, her knees were already unsteady. At precisely 9:02 a.m., a hotel security officer found her near the janitor's closet. "Miss Williams," she turned quickly. "Yes?" "You're expected on the 47th floor. Please come with me." Her heart skipped as they rode the elevator up. Maya stared straight ahead, willing her breathing to stay calm. 41, 42, 43. Each number felt like a countdown to something unknown. When the doors opened, everything changed. The executive floor smelled faintly of cedar and citrus polish. The carpet was lush, the air quiet and expensive. This wasn't a place she belonged. The receptionist glanced up. "You're Miss Williams. Go right in. Mr. Caldwell is expecting you." Maya's feet carried her forward, though everything inside her begged her to turn back. She paused outside the frosted glass door with golden lettering, "Ethan Caldwell, CEO, ClearLink Technologies." She raised her hand to knock. Then she thought of Zeke, of his hand signing, "You got this." She took a breath and knocked. "Come in," said a voice from the other side of the door. Maya hesitated just for a breath, then turned the handle and stepped into the room. Ethan Caldwell's office was spacious, but not extravagant. A wall of windows looked out over the city skyline, and a large wooden desk stood near the center, flanked by bookshelves and minimal decor, except for a framed photo on the shelf behind him. Maya noticed it as she stepped closer, a younger Ethan, maybe 7 or 8, sitting beside a much older man with hearing aids, both of them smiling with their hands raised in what looked like signs. "Miss Williams," Ethan said, standing from behind his desk. He wasn't as intimidating in this room. No suit jacket, just a white dress shirt with rolled sleeves. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." She sat carefully on the edge of the chair, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Every part of her posture whispered, "I don't belong here." Ethan sat across from her, resting his forearms lightly on the desk. "I know this is unexpected. I appreciate you coming upstairs." Maya nodded but said nothing. He studied her for a moment, then asked gently, "How long have you been signing?" "Since I was 15, she replied, voice quiet. "My brother Zeke lost his hearing after a high fever. My mom couldn't afford speech therapy or interpreters, so I started learning on my own. YouTube, library books. Eventually, I took some community classes." "And you were studying it formally at some point?" "Yes. I enrolled in the linguistics program at Roosevelt University. I was hoping to become an interpreter, maybe even work in education for deaf children." "What happened?" Maya hesitated, looking down at her hands. "My mom got sick. Breast cancer. I dropped out before my final year. I had to work." Ethan nodded slowly, as if he understood something deeper than just the words. "That's a heavy choice." "It wasn't really a choice," Maya said with a soft shrug. "We needed the money. Cleaning jobs were easier to get. No questions asked." "You've been working here long?" "For years," she said. "Full-time for the last 3, mostly mornings. I like the early shifts. Quiet." He smiled at that. "You seem like someone who listens more than you speak." "That's probably true." There was another short silence. Then Ethan leaned slightly forward. "Let me get straight to the point, Maya. My company, ClearLink, is developing new AI tools that recognize and interpret sign language. We've made solid progress with traditional ASL, but we're hitting a wall when it comes to nuance and fluid conversation. The system struggles with regional variations, emotional intent, even basic sentence structure when the pacing changes." Maya blinked, listening. "What we need," he continued, "is someone who understands ASL not just as a language, but as a lived experience. Someone who knows how people actually use it in families, in daily life. We need perspective." She tilted her head, confused. "You think I could help?" "I do," he said simply. "Would you be open to consulting with us? A part-time position at first, flexible hours, paid well. You'd work directly with our development team to identify where our system misses the mark. You'd be shaping something that could improve lives. Maya's heart skipped. Her first instinct was to recoil, to find the nearest exit. Mr. Caldwell, I'm not qualified, she said quickly. I never finished school. I've never worked in tech. I don't even have a resume. I clean hotel rooms. You're also someone who has lived the language. You taught yourself out of love. That's more than most of my team understands. But I'm not the kind of person who works on important projects. Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. Can I tell you something? When I was 5 years old, I fell out of a tree and cracked my skull. The swelling damaged my auditory nerves. I was deaf until I was nearly 8. Maya's eyes widened. I was lucky, he said. There was a new surgical procedure just entering trials. It restored partial hearing, but for nearly 3 years, I lived in silence. I remember the frustration, the isolation, the feeling of being invisible. He paused, then added, and then yesterday morning, someone signed to me out of nowhere and reminded me of why I started this company in the first place. Maya swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a sleek white business card, sliding it across the desk. That's my direct number. If you want to talk more, or if you decide to give this a shot, call me. She stared at the card like it was made of glass. Take your time, he said. No pressure, but just so you know, you're already the most interesting person I've talked to all week. Maya couldn't help but smile, shy and uncertain. Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. Ethan, he corrected. She stood, card still clutched in her hand. Thank you, Ethan. If you felt moved by Maya's quiet courage in this moment, tap the like button to show your support and drop a comment with where you're watching from on Real Stories Diary. Who knows? Someone nearby might be watching, too. As she stepped back into the hallway, the quiet of the executive floor felt different than before. Less distant, less off-limits. The carpet still cushioned her steps. The glass still shimmered in soft sunlight, but something had changed. Downstairs, she returned to her cart, resumed her duties, but her thoughts stayed upstairs. That evening, Zeke found her in their shared kitchen, the business card face down on the table. You didn't call him, he signed. I don't think I can, she said aloud. What if I fail? What if I disappoint him? He reached over, took her hand. Then, with deliberate signs, he said, what if you don't? What if this is exactly where you're supposed to be? Maya didn't answer right away. But later, as she lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, her fingers moved silently in the air, rehearsing old signs, letting them breathe again. Somewhere deep inside, a door had opened. Whether she was brave enough to walk through it, that remained to be seen. The Clearlink Technologies building didn't look like much from the outside, just another glass-fronted mid-rise in the West Loop, wedged between a sushi spot and a dry cleaner. But as Maya stepped into the lobby, the atmosphere felt entirely different from the hotel. Sleek, clean, alive with quiet motion. People with tablets passed one another in hushed conversations. Glass walls revealed labs and meeting rooms full of engineers in smart casual clothes and whiteboards covered in scribbles and arrows. Maya clutched her shoulder bag tightly, still wearing the same polished flats she used at work. Her outfit was modest, a clean white blouse, dark pants, and a borrowed cardigan from her mother. She'd called Ethan that morning, barely able to say the words, but he'd responded immediately. I'm glad. Can you come in today? Now she stood just inside the sliding doors, the receptionist already waving her forward. Miss Williams, Mr. Caldwell is waiting for you upstairs. The elevator ride felt like it belonged in a different world. No clunky service buttons, no chipped panels. Everything shimmered in soft silver and blue. When the doors opened, Maya stepped into a floor filled with energy. No cubicles, just open workspaces, high-top tables, and screens mounted everywhere. Ethan approached from a side hallway, smiling warmly. Maya, you made it. Barely, she whispered with a nervous laugh. My stomach tried to talk me out of it all morning. I'm glad it lost the argument. He gestured for her to follow, leading her past a few curious glances from tech staff in t-shirts and jeans who looked at her like she'd wandered in from another reality. Maya noticed the contrast instantly. She stood out, not just for her skin tone or her clothes, but her posture. She carried herself like someone unsure if she was welcome. They entered a medium-sized conference room with 2 large monitors on one wall and a sleek table lined with tablets. On the screens, there were paused clips of hands signing different phrases, frozen mid-motion. "This is the sandbox," Ethan said, pulling out a chair for her, "where we break everything so we can figure out how to build it better." Maya smiled faintly. "That feels familiar." He handed her a tablet. "This is our current AI recognition system. It's at about 70% accuracy with formal ASL, but when people sign faster, with emotion or dialect variation, the accuracy drops, sometimes badly." Maya watched a short clip on the tablet. A woman signed quickly, "I need help now, please." The AI's interpretation showed, "Need now?" Confused. "That's not just wrong," Maya said, frowning. "That's dangerous." "Exactly," Ethan replied. She leaned forward, watching the clip again, then switched to a different example. Her fingers moved unconsciously in the air beside her as she analyzed each motion. The AI isn't accounting for blended signs, and the handshake tracking is off when the signer moves too fast, especially with emotion. Ethan's eyes lit up. "You see that?" She nodded slowly. "It's interpreting literal position instead of intent. It doesn't understand nuance. It doesn't understand context." "And that," he said, tapping the screen gently, "is why we need you." Maya swallowed. The words felt too big, too heavy. She shook her head. "I don't know if I belong here." Ethan looked at her seriously. "Maya, you already are here." For the next 2 hours, Maya became someone she hadn't met in a long time. Her nervousness slowly faded as she focused on the patterns, the errors, the missing human touch. She explained how her brother signed differently when he was scared versus excited, how her community developed shortcuts that AI would never recognize without lived experience. When she showed the difference between frustrated and confused, 2 signs that looked similar but held totally different energy, Ethan laughed in disbelief. "No wonder our testers keep reporting emotional disconnects." Maya smiled for the first time that day without hesitation. "It's like reading lips without listening to tone. You get the words, not the meaning." They took a break. Maya sat by the window in the hallway, sipping a paper cup of mint tea. Her heart was racing, not from fear this time, but something else, something warmer, like she had value here. Sarah Chan appeared shortly after. Maya had never met her before, but the woman's sharp black pantsuit and quick steps carried a distinct air of authority. She stopped just in front of Maya, studying her. "You're Maya Williams?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sarah Chen. I oversee staffing coordination and internal security for ClearLink partnerships." Her voice was crisp, professional, and utterly unreadable. "I understand you're assisting on the ASL interface." "I'm trying," Maya replied quietly. Sarah's smile was tight. "I hope you understand that Mr. Caldwell's trust is rare. So is executive-level collaboration. People tend to notice when that trust is extended to someone without formal credentials." Maya blinked, unsure how to respond. "I'm sure your insights are helpful," Sarah continued. "But be mindful. Not every opportunity is as permanent as it appears." Then, with a nod, she turned and walked away. Maya sat frozen for a moment, that same familiar voice, the voice of doubt, now wearing heels and a badge. She stared down at her tea, suddenly tasting bitterness beneath the mint. Later, when Ethan returned and sat beside her in the hallway, he noticed something had shifted. "You okay?" he asked. Maya nodded once. "Just wondering if I'm in over my head." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Want to know something?" She glanced over. "My first job was stocking shelves at a Radio Shack in Peoria. I had zero technical knowledge, just curiosity. I used to fix old Walkmans at night just to understand how they worked." Maya smiled faintly. I built this company because no one listened to me when I was deaf. They smiled and nodded, but they didn't listen. And now, I don't want to build anything that forgets what it feels like to be invisible. He looked at her carefully. You've lived both sides of this story, Maya. You've been unheard, and you've learned how to help others speak. That's exactly what we need. She felt her throat tighten, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was recognition. He stood and offered a hand. Come on, we've got a lot more to break before we start building. And as Maya placed her hand in his, something inside her shifted, just slightly, enough to begin. Don't miss what happens next in Maya's incredible journey. Subscribe to Real Stories Diary for more inspiring stories like this. 2 days later, Maya stood quietly by the supply shelves in the hotel's service corridor, folding fresh towels with mechanical precision. Her body was present, but her mind was still in that ClearLink conference room, surrounded by monitors, feedback loops, and conversations that felt like they finally included her. Every part of her had come alive up there. She wasn't just cleaning up messes. She was making something. But down here, in this gray hallway with its flickering fluorescent light and the faint scent of bleach, everything felt duller, heavier. Maya, the voice made her flinch. She turned to see Sarah Chin standing just a few steps away, arms crossed. In her charcoal gray blazer and pointed heels, Sarah looked like she belonged to another universe. A cold, polished one. Yes, ma'am? Maya asked, setting the towel stack aside. I'd like a word. Maya followed her without argument, trailing behind through the service hallway until they reached a small meeting room used for staff evaluations. Sarah closed the door behind them with a soft but deliberate click. I understand you've been spending time at ClearLink, she began, not sitting. Maya clasped her hands. Yes. Mr. Caldwell invited me to consult on the ASL interface. Sarah nodded, her expression unreadable. I'm aware, and I want to be clear. While the hotel encourages ambition among our staff, we also expect boundaries. What you do in your off hours is your business, but if it compromises your availability or performance here, it becomes mine. Maya's chest tightened. I've made sure my shifts are covered, ma'am. I haven't missed a minute. I'm sure, Sarah said, her tone sharper now, but I've seen situations like this before. An employee gets noticed. They get pulled into something bigger than they're prepared for. And suddenly, reality hits. They burn out. Or worse, they embarrass themselves. Maya bit her lip. I'm trying my best. That may not be enough. These executives, people like Ethan Caldwell, they live in a different world. They don't always mean harm, but they forget what it's like to be on the ground. They make promises they can't keep. Maya's voice came out smaller than she meant. I don't think Mr. Caldwell is like that. Sarah stepped closer, her expression hardening. Even if he's not, you need to ask yourself, are you ready for what he's offering? Are you prepared to walk into a room full of people with Ivy League degrees and speak like you belong? I don't know, Maya admitted. But I want to try. Sarah stared at her for a long second, then gave a tight smile. Ambition is admirable, but knowing your limits, that's wisdom. Maya didn't answer. She couldn't. Not with the heat rising in her face, not with her heart pounding in her ears. After Sarah left, Maya stayed in the small room for a few minutes, staring at the wall. The light above her buzzed faintly. She suddenly felt like a child again, too loud, too curious, always being told to sit still, to stop dreaming. She thought of Zeke's face when she'd first told him about ClearLink. That wide-eyed pride. What would he think now? She was still lost in thought when she heard a familiar voice outside the room. Maya, it was Mrs. Ida Green, her longtime supervisor and quiet guardian in the hotel's unseen workforce. With graying curls and eyes like steel wrapped in velvet, Miss Green had been working hotel floors since before Maya was born. I've been looking all over for you, the older woman said, stepping in. What's got you folded up like a paper fan? Maya looked at her, hesitated, then spoke softly. Mrs. Chen had some concerns about me working with Mr. Caldwell. Mrs. Green arched an eyebrow. Concerns, huh? That woman's got a closet full of them, color-coded and alphabetized. She said people like me don't belong in rooms like that, with engineers in suits. She said I might embarrass myself. Mrs. Green didn't speak at first. She walked over, pulled out a chair, and sat across from Maya. "Let me tell you something," she said, folding her hands. "I've worked in hotels for 32 years. I've seen congressmen throw tantrums and CEOs cry like toddlers because their pillow wasn't the right firmness. You think they're any more qualified to change the world than you?" Maya shook her head slowly, lips pressed tight. "You have something they don't," Mrs. Green continued. "You know how to listen. You know what silence means. You've lived it. That man didn't ask you upstairs because he felt sorry for you. He saw something real. But what if I fail?" Maya whispered. Mrs. Green gave her a look, both firm and kind. "Then you fail forward. You fall, you learn, and you rise higher next time. The only people who never fall are the ones too scared to try." Maya sat very still, her hands resting quietly in her lap. The weight in her chest hadn't gone away, but it had shifted. She wasn't alone in carrying it anymore. That evening, back at home, Maya sat on the edge of her bed with Ethan Caldwell's business card in one hand and her phone in the other. She dialed once, then hung up before it rang. Dialed again, then stopped. From the hallway, Zeke appeared, holding a half-eaten granola bar. "You haven't called him yet," he signed, one brow raised. "How do you know? You get this look like you're arguing with a ghost." Maya laughed under her breath. Zeke walked over, flopped onto the bed beside her, and signed slowly, "You remember when I was scared to try out for robotics club? You told me the worst thing isn't being rejected. It's never knowing what could have happened." Maya looked at him, her eyes softening. He signed again, slowly. "What's the worst thing that happens if you say yes?" "I fail," she said aloud. "I prove I'm not good enough. That I'm just a hotel maid pretending." Zeke's hands moved firmly. "And what's the worst thing that happens if you say no?" "I stay here. I keep folding towels. I wonder for the rest of my life." He gave her a gentle nudge. "Then what are you waiting for?" Maya looked down at the card one more time. She picked up the phone, and this time she didn't hang up. 2 rings. "Caldwell. Mr. Caldwell, it's Maya Williams." He paused, then his voice shifted. "Maya, I was hoping you'd call. I'd like to try if the offer is still open." "It absolutely is. Can you come in tomorrow afternoon? We'll talk next steps." Maya nodded, even though he couldn't see. "Yes. 3 o'clock, perfect. And Maya, thank you for being brave enough to say yes." When she hung up, her hands were still trembling, but there was something new beneath the nerves. Not confidence, not yet, but something close, hope and the first flicker of belief. She looked at Zeke and signed one word, "Tomorrow." Maya arrived at Clear Link's temporary development center 15 minutes early. She stood across the street at first, watching the office windows glow with late afternoon sunlight. Her hands were damp with nerves, but her posture was straighter than before, not because she felt ready, she didn't, but because she decided she would at least show up, and that meant something. Ethan Caldwell greeted her at the elevator with a warm smile. "Right on time." Maya nodded, smiling back. "I walked around the block twice." "Why?" "To keep from turning around." Ethan chuckled, motioning her forward. "I get it. First day jitters. Let's channel them into something useful." They headed into a new lab space, larger than before, more structured. There were 3 engineers seated at a curved table lined with laptops. One of them, a blond man in his late 30s, looked up when Maya entered and gave a neutral nod. Another, a younger woman with short curls and a tablet in hand, smiled in quiet greeting. "This is Dennis, our machine learning specialist, and Clara, one of our UI designers," Ethan introduced. "They'll be working closely with you." Maya offered a polite hello and took the seat Ethan pointed out. On the center screen, Ethan pulled up the latest test scenario. A teenager was signing a message quickly. She went to the hospital. We need to call mom. The AI caption read, She go doctor. Call now. Clara frowned. We're missing entire layers of meaning. That's why Maya's here, Ethan said, then turned to her. Walk us through what's off. Maya leaned in, studying the video. It's not just the words. The rhythm matters. Look at his eyebrows when he signs call mom. That urgency is lost. The AI flattens it. Dennis raised an eyebrow. The system only picks up motion. We don't have a face emotion component yet. Then maybe we need one, Ethan replied. They spent the next hour reviewing clips. Maya noted hand positioning that altered meaning, subtle shifts in body angle that indicated tone, and dozens of cultural nuances that the system hadn't been taught to recognize. Dennis occasionally pushed back, citing computational limits or dataset constraints, but even he seemed intrigued by Maya's ability to interpret layers they hadn't considered. You're saying there's a difference between textbook ASL and what people actually use, Clara summarized. Exactly, Maya said. There's textbook English, and then there's how we talk at home. It's the same in sign. By the time they wrapped, Maya was surprised to find herself enjoying the conversation. She wasn't just holding her own, she was contributing. Ethan noticed too. You did great, he said as the others filtered out. How do you feel? Like I might have something to offer, she admitted shyly. He smiled. You do. Before she could respond, Sarah Chen appeared in the doorway. Ethan, can I steal a moment? Ethan nodded. Give me a second, he told Maya, then stepped into the hallway with Sarah, who spoke in low, clipped tones. Maya couldn't hear what was said, but she could see the tension. Sarah's arms crossed, her jaw tight. Ethan remained calm, hands in his pockets, but his brows furrowed just slightly. After a few minutes, he returned. His voice was even, but his smile had faded. Sorry about that, he said. Everything okay? Just logistics, he said vaguely. Come on, let me show you something. He led her to a different room, smaller, cozier, lined with whiteboards and sticky notes. A large screen displayed a map of user feedback data. Ethan sat and motioned for her to join. Maya, he said seriously, we're opening a permanent office here in Chicago. We're expanding operations, and we'll need people who understand both tech and the people we're building for. Maya nodded slowly. Okay. I want to offer you a formal position. Still part-time to start, if that's what you're comfortable with, but with benefits. Title, ASL User Experience Consultant. You'd work directly with design and development teams, train new hires on sign culture, and help test our tools. Maya blinked. I don't know what to say. You can take time to think about it, he said. But just so you know, you've already proven your value. Today wasn't a test. It was a beginning. She swallowed, hands clasped in her lap. Mr. Caldwell, Ethan, I'm flattered. Really? But I heard what Miss Chen said. She doesn't think I belong here. His jaw tightened subtly. I'll handle Sarah. It's not just her, Maya said. It's the world. People like me aren't trained to think of ourselves as experts. Ethan leaned forward. You ever think maybe that's the problem with the world, not with you? Maya didn't answer, but she didn't look away either. Listen, he added, you're not here because I'm doing you a favor. You're here because our technology will fail without people like you. She let that settle in. The words felt too big, too generous, but part of her wanted to believe them. Back at the hotel that evening, Maya cleaned a corner suite in silence, replaying every moment of the afternoon, the feel of the tablet in her hands, the surprise on Dennis's face, the quiet pride rising in her chest. After her shift, she stepped outside into the cool night air and called Zeke. Well? He asked the moment he picked up. They offered me a real job, she said, with a title and everything. Zeke whooped so loudly she had to pull the phone away. What did you say? He signed, grinning. I told them I need a little time. You've been ready, he signed. You just didn't know it yet. She laughed softly. Maybe. Maya looked up at the sky, stars barely visible through the city haze. The air smelled of damp concrete and warm pretzels from a food cart down the block. Her world hadn't changed yet, but something inside her had, and she was beginning to think Sarah Chen was wrong. Maybe people like her could belong in those rooms. Maybe they were the ones who needed to build them. The next few weeks passed in a blur of early mornings, double shifts, and quiet transformations. By day, Maya continued her duties at Wexford Tower, fluffing pillows, scrubbing bathroom counters, tucking note cards into fresh pressed sheets. But in the afternoons, she stepped into a very different world. At Clearlink's development hub, she was no longer just the maid. She was Maya Williams, ASL User Experience Consultant. Her badge even said so, laminated, clipped to a lanyard, her name printed in bold blue. She still felt self-conscious wearing it. Some part of her half expected someone to snatch it off her chest and say, "Sorry, that's not for you." But no one did. And every time she helped the AI correct a misread gesture or explained the difference between assigned surface meaning and emotional intent, the doubts inside her quieted bit by bit. One Thursday afternoon, as she walked into the lab, Clara grinned and waved her over. "We ran your feedback into the latest update," Clara said, her curls bouncing with excitement. "Watch this." On the screen, a clip showed a young woman signing, "I'm scared. He didn't come home last night." Previously, the AI had interpreted it as, "He late, worried." Now, it displayed,